In order to truly understand Tom, we must first define Tom. Now, Thomas comes from the Old Hebrew word taom, which means twin. But Tom, in a lot of ways, is unique, and there's no one else like Tom. And his last name, Pendleton, is a noun which means overhanging settlement. And let's face it, when you truly think about Tom Pendleton, is he not an overhanging settlement for all of us? You know, I first met Tom Pendleton in the fall of 2013 when I was an internship coordinator for Grant Associates. And I remember every single time he was on the phone, we had to make sure that our reports were impeccably prepared. We had to make sure that all of our ducks were in a row. Everything had to be spick and span for the famous Tom Pendleton. Fast forward several years, and as I'm being interviewed by John Widlin and Harini Venkatesh, somebody in the Rotunda Hall of the Tweed building bumped into me. And I was thinking to myself, Tweed seems to have a lot of aggressive, short-tempered people, because why are they bumping me like that? But when I lifted up my head, lo and behold, it was once again Tom Pendleton. He was right then and there to wish me luck on my interview. Then he turned to John and he said, hire this man, he's a good man. Tom, I never forgot those words. And it is because of Tom I've been able to not only begin my career with Central Office, but I've been able to thrive as well. Even though Tom has always been in a much higher position than me in terms of hierarchy, I've always felt at ease and at comfort whenever I've had any sort of questions or inquiries for him. He's very down to earth, very easy to talk to. But enough about my opinions on Tom, because there are people much better, much more qualified than myself who are able to talk about Tom. You see, Tom is very special because he's outlasted not two, not three, not four, not five, but six different chancellors during his tenure. So today, we're going to hear from six different chancellors about the career of the famous Thomas Pendleton. First, we're going to hear from Chancellor Joel Klein. Now, Mr. Klein, can you just briefly summarize what was the working environment like for Tom Pendleton while he was here with us in Department of Education?
Large, massive bureaucracy, wrapped in politics, unions, bureaucrats, the whole 9 yards.
Now, Ms. Black, according to Tom, he's been working here for 16 years, but in real life, how long has he been around?
For nearly 40 years.
That's a lot of years. Would you happen to know how much money is in his bank account right now?
1.1 million.
Wow, that's a lot of money. But before we get more into Tom's personal business and his financial accounts, let's hear from Chancellor Walcott. Now, Mr. Walcott, I've had the privilege of meeting you downtown Manhattan some years ago, and I want to know from you specifically, what kind of impact has Tom had on your career?
I'm a lot better.
Now, Mr. Klein, over the past, I would say maybe 2 years or so, how much of Tom's day is spent actually doing work versus time spent about him daydreaming about retirement?
49, 50%, 49, 50%, 50, 51, back to 50.
Ms. Farina, I'd like to hear from you next. How has Tom affected teaching? How has he affected learning? And how has he affected the system? You've seen him firsthand. What can you say about him?
We have brought back dignity to teaching, joy to learning, and trust to the system.
Those are some very, very powerful words that pretty much define the tenure of Tom Pendleton as he's worked within Central Office. And I want to hear from you next, Mr. Carranza. What are your feelings right now that Tom has now announced that he's going to be leaving us? So as Mr. Carranza gathers his thoughts and feelings together, I can't say that I have too much difficulty empathizing with him. As a matter of fact, many of you may not know this, but I have a bit of a green thumb myself. And I once had a very nice, lush, green, vibrant spinach plant. But my plant too is saddened by the departure of Tom. And now look at this mess of a withered plant that I have. And I think that this withered plant so aptly represents what we're all feeling here in central office. Current Chancellor, Ms. Porter, I can't imagine working in Department of Education without Tom. What are your thoughts about us as a department, as an organization, moving forward without Tom?
It won't be easy.
And finally, how about you, Mayor de Blasio? You're on your way out yourself. Are there any final parting words that you'd like to share with Tom before you go?
I think you just got a window into the good heart and soul of this man who I've worked so closely with. To go through so much loss, but still somehow find a way to do so much for our children and our families is extraordinarily admirable. And what a spirit, what a powerful spirit you have. But thank you for all you have done for us. We've had a lot of good times together.
We indeed have had a lot of good times together, Tom. So thank you again for your service in New York City, and all the best in your retirement.